And welcome to CBN4's Primetime News Package for today. I'm your presenter, Alian Christopher. Here's a look at the headlines for today. Ectel donates $350,000 to Dominica's recovery. And a Dominican registered sand dredging ship capsizes off Malaysia. Stay tuned for these and other stories when CBN4's Primetime News returns.
L'année sim tout partout. Attention si vous êtes homme et bien femme. Visitez place santé pour examiner corps. Ça c'est un nick pour yo ouais si l'année pièce moun au lion qui ni maladie TB et bien maladie sexuelle. En compagnie moun qui ni maladie HIV pe ni TB aussi. Savent qui l'année guérison pour TB. Ou ça vivre en bonne santé même si ou ni maladie HIV. Parlez by docteur. Prends responsabilité. Aidez du bout de maladie TB et HIV. Pour agir tout le monde pour examiner corps yo.
If you're HIV positive or have an STI, having unprotected sex with multiple partners puts them in grave danger. You'll expose every partner and their present and future partners to HIV or another STI. Use a condom every time you have sex. You can live a productive life even if diagnosed with HIV. Remember, early detection is key to your survival. Be responsible, protect yourself and others. Help stop the spread of HIV and other STIs.
There are signs everywhere. Pay attention whether you're male or female. Visit your health center to get screened. It's a preliminary test to determine if you are...
And welcome back. The Eastern Caribbean Telecommunications Authority, ECTEL, has donated 2 checks, one to the government of Dominica and one to the National Telecommunications Regulatory Commission, NTRC, in the amount of EC $150,000 and EC $200,000 respectively. Andrew Millett, Managing Director of ECTEL, stated that following the hurricane on September 18th last year, the regulatory authorities across the region decided to assist Dominica in many different ways.
It's a proud moment for me in order to hand over 2 checks. One, as Piers Blackmore said, one to the government and people of Dominica, and secondly also to the NTRC Dominica, because NTRC has been displaced since the hurricane, and we have to do some restoration activities.
The acting managing director also noted that apart from these monetary donations, one that must be taken into consideration is the idea of improving resilience for hurricanes. Meantime, Minister for Information, Science, Telecommunications and Technology, Kelvo Daru, said the $150,000 to the government of Dominica will go towards the housing sector. It is expected to target the communities within St. Joseph constituency where some housing projects will be undertaken. The additional $200,000 for the NTRC will be used to ensure the complete restoration of the NTRC's building and also the services that they provide throughout the country.
So this is how the $350,000 will be divided. I want to thank publicly the Council of Ministers of ECTEL for their approval of these funds, my fellow colleagues, and also the Board of ECTEL for moving expeditiously to ensure that this presentation could be made here this morning. As the OECS regulatory arm, May I suggest that ECTEL seeks to not only respond with funding gestures such as these after disasters, but to look at ensuring governments strictly adhere to and enforce the provisions of the Temper Convention on Emergency Telecommunications in all jurisdictions in member states, in keeping with the mandate to ensure: 1, reliable, rapid availability of telecommunication resources for disaster mitigation and relief operations; 2, to facilitate international cooperation to mitigate the impact of disasters; and 3, to facilitate the effective, timely deployment of telecommunication resources that rapid, efficient, accurate, and truthful information flows are essential to reducing the loss of life, human suffering, damage to property, and the environment caused by disasters.
The minister said, ECTEL to most persons is synonymous to telecom regulation, license fees, spectrum management, and universal service matters, among other sector-related functions. He stated, however, that ECTEL encompasses much more than this, as the management team was very quick to respond to the telecom restoration efforts in Dominica in the immediate aftermath of Hurricane Maria.
Did so by suspending the licenses and the relaxation of regulatory processes in order to expedite overseas of the people's businesses, policymakers, and also to provide necessary frequencies to both Flow and Digicel in an effort to restore communications in Dominica. So we want to thank you for that, for the approval of that, Mr. Millers, and your staff.
Darrow said the temporary suspension of these processes brought hope and a sense of connectivity to communities and people during a time of apparent despair, as telecommunication systems were quickly restored to facilitate communication by family and friends. And today, Dominica, along with the Forestry, Wildlife and National Parks Division of the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, joined the rest of the world in celebrating International Day of the Forest 2018 under the theme Forest and Sustainable Cities. Speaking at a short tree planting ceremony at the Botanical Gardens, Minister responsible for Agriculture, Johnson Drago, noted that it is very necessary for the common public to understand that forest value is our daily lives as a raw material source, local employment source, as well as national income source cannot be overestimated. According to Drago, the forest plays a great role in gathering and releasing water on the earth and maintains the balance of the flora and fauna.
Almost 40% of the total land worldwide is occupied by the forests, containing over 60,000 tree species, which are ultimately the great resource of food, fuel, fodder, essential oils, latex, gums, medicines, fiber, water, and wood for the population of around 1.6 million poorest people of the world. Forests and trees help mitigate the impact of climate change in and around urban areas. Urban trees are essential air filters, removing harmful pollutants in the air. Well-managed forests and trees in and around cities provide habitat and food protection for many plants and animals, helping to maintain and increase biodiversity. Urban green spaces, including forests, encourage active and healthy lifestyle, improve mental health, prevents diseases, and provide a place for people to socialize.
Drago says that forestry in cities and surrounding areas generates tourism, creates jobs, and encourages beautification schemes, building dynamic, energetic, and prosperous green economies. And the Dominica Hotel and Tourism Association has donated office equipment to the Wesley High School and the Combined Taxi Association to assist with rehabilitation efforts post-Hurricane Maria. Over the past 6 months, DHTA has lobbied on behalf of private sector organizations for the procurement of resources to support institutions with the restoration of business operations. Soon after Maria, the DHTA was contacted by a teacher of the Wesley High School to help the institution recover from the vandalism that ensued after the hurricane's passage. On Monday, the 19th of March, DHTA Executive Vice President Kevin Francis presented the Wesley High School with 2 projectors donated by a backpacker, hiker, and longtime friend of Dominica, New York native Ivy Raff. The association also presented computers to the Combined Taxi Association, also donated by Raff, as well as Jolly's Pharmacy to resume business after major damage to their work office, which caused by Hurricane Maria, and caused the association to stop operations and layoff of staff. DHTA Executive Vice President Kevin Francis said Combined Taxi Association plays a vital role in the delivery of our tourism product in Dominica. And Dominica's Telecommunication Minister, Kelva Daru, has suggested that all licenses should ensure that networks must have some form of alternate power supply, whether solar, wind, or geothermal, to keep their systems operational when the main electric grid has been damaged or compromised by a storm. Daru also suggested that access to satellite communication as a gateway to maintaining communication should be feasible in the designs of the service providers.
Underground cabling to major network nodes should be mandatory and installed away from major water tributaries where possible. Incentives should be provided to such providers for designing and installing resilient networks, whether in the form of equipment waivers by government or limited free spectrum to facilitate such deployment. When every sector of our vulnerable economies are to think and act resilient, then we are working for the common good of all our citizens.
Daru further mentioned that ECTEL member states, and as such Dominica, should endeavor to establish a government-owned and managed emergency telecommunications network for the preservation of the country's security and resiliency for continued communication when the main networks are non-operational after a natural disaster.
Such a network would not be conceived as a competitor to the local service providers, but simply as a non-billable service for a short interim of time to ensure government services continuity while the legacy networks are being restored to normal service. And looking forward, that's the way that we want to go.
And Malaysia launched search and rescue operations after a sand dredging vessel capsized on Wednesday in the waters of Malaysia in the Malacca Strait, leaving at least 1 dead and 14 crew members missing. The Dominican registered vessel JBB Rongchang 8 capsized 8.5 nautical miles off Parit, Jawa in southern Malaysian state of Johor. Malaysian Maritime Enforcement Agency said it received a distress call at around 8:50 a.m. local time and launched a search and rescue mission afterwards. There were 18 crew members on the vessel, including 1 Malaysian, 1 Indonesian, and 16 Chinese citizens, according to the Malaysian Maritime Enforcement Agency, the country's Coast Guard stated. Three have been rescued, 1 was found dead, and 14 remained missing. The Chinese embassy in Malaysia confirmed that among the 16 Chinese crew members, 1 was dead and 12 remained missing. The 3 rescued are in good condition. Tian will be back with more after the break.
There are signs everywhere. Pay attention whether you're male or female. Visit your health center to get screened. It's a preliminary test to determine if you are exposed to the HIV virus, an STI, or tuberculosis. Some people who are HIV positive also have tuberculosis.
Les moun ki ni TB estene e ben tousse, moun ki en bonne santé oli wan ka respire se vermine la. Moun ki pa ni bon tempérament, kon sa ki ni maladie HIV, alcool, ka fumer, ti mamay e gwa moun bien sensible pour ces maladies sa la. Moun ki ka tousse ni pou prendre précaution le yo en parmi moun en place publique, couvre bouche ou le ka estene et tousse. Visitez docteur e ben place santé. fini tout traitement yo ba ou sa jwen guérison et puis maladie TB. En responsabilité ou, aider du bout simen maladie TB et HIV, protéger corps et les autres.
And welcome back. A 17-year-old male student shot 2 other students at Great Mills High School in Maryland on Tuesday morning before a school resource officer engaged him and stopped the threat, authorities stated. The incident began in a school hallway at 7:55 a.m. just before classes started. Authorities say Austin Wyatt Rollins, armed with a handgun, shot a female and a male student. The shooter had a prior relationship with the female student, St. Mary's County Sheriff Tim Cameron said. The school's resource officer, Blaine Gaskill, responded to the scene in less than a minute, the sheriff said, and Gaskill fired a round at the shooter, and the shooter fired a round simultaneously, Cameron stated. Rollins was later pronounced dead. Gaskill was unharmed. The 16-year-old female student is in critical condition with life-threatening injuries, and the 14-year-old male student who was shot is in stable condition. Cameron said he was not sure whether Gaskill's bullet hit the suspect, but he praised the officer's quick response to the situation. And U.S. media have identified the suspect linked to a series of deadly parcel bombs targeting the Texas city of Austin as Mark Anthony Condit, age 23. The man was killed after he detonated an explosive as officers approached his car following a chase in Round Rock, north of the Texas state capital. Officials say he lived about 20 miles from Austin in a shared home. The incident follows 4 bomb attacks in the Austin area. Officials warn he may have placed more bombs in that particular area. And that takes us to the end of today's Primetime News package. On behalf of the entire CBN4 team, I am Alan Christopher saying thank you for watching and do join us again next time.